Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Sphere of Success, where we look at life's and business challenges and adversity. Because let's face it, if you're going to get out of bed in the morning, it's going to come, isn't it? It's one of those things that's a given. And it's how we look at that, not from a toxic perspective where we think, oh, yeah, well, put a smile on my face and it'll all be okay, because sometimes that just doesn't work. But ultimately, how can we look at these things with childlike curiosity often to actually bring about a change in ourselves to say, actually, you know what, this is a decent lesson to learn. And if I can navigate this, often what I feel is that sometimes that just dissolves the situation and we can get out of our thoughts and into actually being in it rather than thinking about it. And so I'm always on the hunt for amazing guests who have beautiful life experiences that express this beautifully, who have worked and working in organizations that are actually helping to navigate people through these times of change and challenge, because often our perception of change is one of challenge in the first place. We kind of marry the two together. And so make no exception. Today is a beautiful guest, Jean-Paul Sacy. He is an international entrepreneur. This guy has worked in more countries than I've had hot breakfasts. He is a heart leader. He's very centered and grounded with the way in which he knows that giving value out to the community with his non-profit initiatives, of which he's founded many successful initiatives throughout the ages, one of which is a wonderful technology school where he's teaching young people to code for future careers. He's marrying the AI and education piece, and we can go and delve into how AI is shaping things now, and not to be felt that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a job. It's to how we can integrate this and make our lives better and business better. He's worked for the likes of Baker Hughes, EY, Celerant, and he has a career which some recruiters would say, don't touch him with a barge pole, because every couple of years he's doing something different. And we can talk about this as well in the interview as to now, you know what? It's not such a bad thing that people have gained a lot of experience from different places, because guess what? They can distill all that in hours. And should we be thinking of the employee, not that it happens anymore, but lasts, 25 years and gets the carriage clock at the end of it? Maybe not. Maybe that's not a model that works anymore or as it used to. So, absolutely, without further ado, welcome, Jean-Paul Sacy. It is wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Deborah, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much for inviting me on your lovely podcast. As I've mentioned, you and I met a few weeks ago, and I love the energy level. I love what you do, and happy to contribute.
Ah, thank you so much. And this is the beautiful thing about technology, as we were talking before. We've just done a podcast on our other podcast, Sphere of Being, is how you can actually use a free platform to actually be in touch with people all around the world on a global basis. And I reached out to Jean-Paul on LinkedIn, and guess what? This is the result of what's happened. And it's absolutely amazing to use technology in that way. Bringing us back to the start of your career, hungry young man wanting to do his bit in the world. What was it that drew you to the work in which you do in Lean and Six Sigma, OPEX, etc.? What was it that absolutely buzzed you and thought, yeah, I want to get into this world. I love it.
I was born and raised in Lebanon. Did an engineering degree. That was tough. 5 years of math, physics, chemistry. Then I did a business school, ESCP, in France. And at that time, success for folks around me, and we're often driven by peer pressure, especially when you're young, meant to work in a prestigious bank or prestigious advisory firm. So I was lucky enough to be able to get my first jobs in an investment bank. I didn't stay there much. So after a few months, I realized that that wasn't for me for all kind of reasons. It's a lovely job, but wasn't in line with what I wanted to do. I then moved to advisory, and so I thought that strategy advisory and was the thing, the most prestigious thing with the highest salary and the nicest way to network. And again, did this for a few months and realized that it was too conceptual, at least from my perspective, too disconnected from reality. And you and I talked about it when I met you a few weeks ago. But I was headhunted by a firm that unfortunately does not exist anymore. But I've spent the best years of my life working for these guys. It used to be called Celerant Consulting. It's a UK-based operational advisory firm. I barely knew what operational advisory was at that time. Certainly wasn't on my radar. And I remember accepting the job. Literally a week later, I was on a flight, went to Finland, and the idea was to transform a paper manufacturing company that was close to the North Pole Circle. And I'd never been there, and that was the only time in my life that I've been there. But that was a transforming, life transforming experience. It's like I still remember every minute, but that was extremely enriching. So a month later, I'm back in Paris, and that was the beginning of a close to 6, 7 years journey. I've traveled around with Celerant. I've been to, unfortunately, places that don't exist anymore. The center of Ukraine, near Donetsk, working in refineries there. I've worked for gold mines in South Africa, for oil fields in the Gulf region, in the North Sea, for manufacturing plants in pretty much everywhere in Europe. And every experience was transformative because unique, very demanding, but also very, like I said, enriching in the sense that new problem to solve, new culture, new people, and that can do mentality with surrounded with folks that were exactly in the same mindset. So if you obviously it's extremely tiring, you travel a lot, there's not a lot of stability, you have to prove yourself pretty much every time you start a new engagement. So yeah, it can get very tiring, but these were the best years of my life in terms of learning.
Ah, you see, this is the thing, isn't it? Challenge does bring this opportunity to learn, and we can delve into this a little bit later. Because when you are in that situation and you're learning from people as mentors as well, you're going to different cultures, you're in different languages, you're different with dealing mindset. Was there a common theme that you could think with all of the business that you've done and all of those wonderful operational projects to help people succeed with do more and efficiencies? What was it that you thought the common thread of those people had that you could say, oh, yeah, this is what brings people together with their desire to go out into the world and do their thing?
So the what comes with the experience, again, you don't need 20 years to realize this, but pretty quickly is to crack a problem, a business problem. Obviously, you need to come up with a conceptual solution that is properly quantified and qualified. But I think the most difficult aspect, and I think you're going to agree with me on this, is the people side of the equation. It can really be modelized. There are approaches, there are methodologies you can deploy. But at the end of the day, but the end of the day, individuals are unique by design. So it's the ability to literally crack the code. And in the case of dealing with individuals, is being able to build genuine relationships of mutual trust to solve a problem. At the end of the day, in most of the situations, not actually in all of the situations, I was a guest that wasn't my firm. So I was an invited party in an enterprise that wasn't mine, and I was literally paid to help solve a problem. Now, I could come with a solution, and I often did, but the toughest part was to convince folks to do things slightly differently, to build trust, to build momentum, and to sustain the change. Now, again, like I said, there's all kind of recipes to do this, but that's tough and it's extremely rewarding when it works. It didn't work always, it worked most of the times. But again, like I've mentioned in our previous discussion, even when it didn't work, you learn, you adjust, you improve. And if it does work, that's amazing. You build on, you formalize the success, and you obviously talk about it because there's learnings and success brings success. So you shouldn't be shy about putting it forward. That's it, Deborah.
Ah, well, no, I love it. And you know what? Sometimes the most complex things can be solved with the most simple solution, but simplicity doesn't mean to say it's easy.
Agree.
Absolutely. And so, as you're talking about doing things differently, and then from your progression in your career, you're very proud, and rightly so, that you've gained a lot of experience in different organizations on a quite a rapid turnaround. Um, just to give us a little idea then, because often people are looking at people that they classify as stable in their workplace, having been there for 4, 5, 6 years prior. What would you say to people now looking to hire beautiful, wonderful people like yourself who have a career history that could show perhaps a little less on the regular tenure side of things?
Let's look at numbers. So I've been working roughly for 2 decades and a half, and I've changed enterprises, corporations, probably more than 10 times. So my average tenure, just do the math, are probably 2.5 years. Huh? So that's pretty high. So a few learnings there. The first one is if for any reason that's not the right choice, that's not the right company, just cut ties fast. Things are not going to get better. It's challenging, it's tough, but there's at least twice over the last 20 years. Yeah, I just joined in the firm after a few months. I decided to move on because from week 2 or 3, I knew that the foundations weren't there. So it doesn't happen often because you try to preempt it as much as possible. But if it does, there's nothing worse than end up, locking yourself into a situation that is going to get not getting better. So have the courage to admit it. You did a mistake, and then just try to move to the next thing, which again is not easy. But not doing it is going to get worse. Is going to make things worse. So that's the first learning. The second that I'll put forward is obviously we work for corporations, and in certain cases it's because of the brand, the prestige associated to the brand, the access. Uh, and I've worked with corporations that certainly fell into that category. But yeah, when we come to think about it, we work for individuals, uh, and we learn from individuals. So my motto was I enjoyed staying in enterprises until the until and when the learning aspect started to become less of a drive, this for me at least was the moment where I was starting to listen to the market, i.e., I wasn't turning down phone calls coming from headhunters or being approached by friends or wanting to work with other guys in my network that were having more fun than I did. And this is how, in most cases, I've decided to jump ship after a few years. So I've learned a lot. And the third thing I'm going to put forward is, and again, if I look back at my last 20, 25 years, it happened in most cases, not always, but I would say probably 80, 90% of the case is leave in good conditions. Leave in good conditions. Because over the last whatever period of your life, you've built a network, in some cases also to a certain extent, an extension of your family. I still have dear friends that are folks that I've worked with 15 years ago. And the beauty is when you change environment, well, the ability for you to connect yourself to a whole new network increases significantly, because these are new colleagues and it's a new challenge and you're starting from scratch. Yes, obviously you're losing some time to readapt. You will lose a few months to get back to where you were. So just make sure that when you're jumping ship, you get that increase in your REM that you would have lost because of the 6 months to a year stagnation that comes with it. Uh, Again, I'm not pretending that it always went well. No, there's definitely a few mistakes I've done and wrong choices, but it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It's if most of the choices I made were right and if you were wrong, it still feels like progression. And we're talking about it before you and I. The only constant is that the size of my network kept on growing because I kept on meeting more and more people from different background and different type of environments. And 8, 9, 10 enterprises later, yeah, I've got a pretty decent network and a large span of of different experiences or expertise to a certain extent, or that I can tap into because of that large spectrum of environments of companies I've worked for.
Interesting, because now let's flip this back onto the businesses that you were working with. And now, as we're looking, 10 years of people, the length of time somebody's going to be with you, um, it's not as long. The perception is that it's not going to be as long as it was previously. How would you help an organization to look at the people that are going to make significant impact in their business, but know that they're not going to be around perhaps for that 5, 6, 7 year tenure that perhaps you would have done before? What can you advise businesses to say now when looking for staff, and also how to keep them? Because of course, as you said, you jumped ship when you weren't learning that there could be an environmental issue. Yeah, love your thoughts on that.
So, as I've mentioned, people work for people, and understanding what drives the individuals that work for you or with you is fundamental. And obviously, there's no one answer for that. It's like different individuals will react to different type of incentives, and obviously a big, the classic incentive we will think about is monetary, but it's paradoxically, and we look at, there's lots of studies around that, it's the least impactful one and the least meaningful one, but nevertheless that's the one we tend to focus on. How much am I making here? Can I make more if I were to shift? Okay, that's pretty basic, but money is rarely the element that makes you stay in organization. Again, coming back to a concept we've talked about before, the pyramid, the Maslow pyramid. Yeah, people wanna get to the top edge of the pyramid, which is self-fulfillment. So yeah, obviously, if they're making enough money and that box is ticked, it's looking at all the other aspects. And what is important from my perspective is that they enjoy doing what they're doing, fundamental, uh, that they learn, that they feel that they're growing, i.e., that they're able to practice new skills, and if things don't go well or not as well as expected, they're being provided feedback and can grow from that. I mean, let's go back to the basics. This is before we if we look at how the world used to work a few centuries ago, before the modern corporation, we were following inspirational figures to do stuff, actually often war, in the sense that following leaders, and they wanted to build organization to fight, but we weren't doing this because we enjoyed fighting. It's because we were inspired by the figure of Alexandre le Grand, Alexander the Great, and. So that kind of like is in the reality. So we work for leaders that are inspirational. Their story is we want to be part of their story. So those aspects are fundamental to keep folks around us that work with us or for us motivated. And if we do this right, chances are that we'll be able to keep them around for a longer period.
And the impact of that within a business, because knowledge is something that grows over time. And then you've got that knowledge that can be brought into your business that can be highly profitable. So keeping that knowledge, keeping that level of commitment from somebody that you have, I think, as you mentioned, is really critical when perhaps people are, there's the whole culture of the side hustle. And sometimes people's side hustles are making more than what they're doing when they're going to work. I mean, it's just like insane in that regard. What would you say to employers looking at flexibility? Obviously, there's different ways of working now, hybrid, office, completely stay at home. What would you say to employers that are looking to engage this workforce, grow their knowledge, but also to make sure that they don't leave you after a certain period of time to then you've got the void of filling that job and the knowledge that's been left?
Well, let's address the last point before we go to the others. It is of the responsibility of firms to just make sure that that knowledge is formalized and embedded as well as possible. So yes, obviously, folks are gonna by doing what they're doing, they're gonna generate knowledge that often remains in their heads, but to maximize let's go back to base to maximize the enterprise value, you need to make sure that that knowledge, obviously, that is being generated is being formalized in one way or another. So if folks decide to leave you, you're not losing part of your business. So that's from an employer perspective. And with the improvements of multiple technology tools that we're all working with, that is becoming more of a reality. The data we generate is often captured directly on the cloud. Some of the calls are recorded. The everything is so just make sure as an employer that that knowledge is captured. That's point one. Point two, and that was the first point you put forward, which is flexible workforce, 100%, especially post-COVID. So asking folks to go and spend 10 hours, 5 days a week, 6 days a week in an office, it's something of the 20th century. I don't know. It's interesting when you come to think about it. How did we end up doing this? It's really something of the 20th century, and it became the norm. And it took us a pandemic to realize that, and obviously the genesis of technology and that enabled new ways of working to realize that that is madness. That is madness. You want people to collaborate, of course, but why do you need to literally put them in prison in an office where they've got their own desk and they clock time and they do their 10 hours? It is so uninspirational. Now it might be required in certain jobs, but in a lot of in most in actually in a big chunk of jobs nowadays, when I say nowadays, it's like the first quarter of the 21st century, that is not required anymore. So find the right balance. People like to work from home if they want, amazing. Now, working from home all the time, they lose a lot. So create flexible offices, make sure that people get together fairly regularly to exchange. But collaboration can happen while being distant to a certain extent. Uh, that's it. And if you find that right balance, that is more in phase with how people want to live, but it's still aligned with your business objectives, guess what? Productivity is going to shoot up because people are happier and they'll find ways for that to work.
Do you know, you said something which is music to my ears because I have an offshore team and I've never met them physically, but we're extremely close and I trust them implicitly. And this is another thing about trust that ultimately, when you've got the culture right and the people are doing things because there's a trade, the what's in it for me and what they're doing for the business, but they are so appreciated by myself. I just think they're brilliant, all of them. And they show up in a way that I just could never have garnered if we were all in an office. There's the fact they do more. It's just like crazy. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of that. And as I say, I've never met these people in person, but ultimately we're very, very close. And we spend a lot of time communicating on various channels like Slack and WhatsApp. And there's the emojis and the smiley faces and the hearts that come up. And you know what? That never happened in the office ever. So.
Exactly. It's like there's a lot of sitcoms on how toxic offices cultures were. We laugh about it, but we tend to forget that it was toxic. It was toxic, i.e., impacting productivity bad. It's like you were sitting in front of the same person for long hours and yeah. I think again, when now that we're kind of like out of that, I'm not saying everybody is out, but the gig economy is growing by the day and is becoming more and more the norm. Yeah, it's interesting to look at it as something of the 20th century. We went through that, and if you look at Taylorism, and it's like the way we organize workforce and the way capitalism is organized keeps on evolving. The only thing that is true about capitalism is that it's not static. It keeps on evolving. Now, this is where we are. Let's try to forecast how it's going to be over the next few decades. I have no idea. We can theorize about it, but chances are we're not going to go back to offices and the 20th century way of working, if I were to take a guess.
Well, this leads me on very nicely to the next question that I want to ask you between how we've moved now from advisory to technology. Please, I'd love you to unpack this and have the thoughts from your perspective.
So I've done close to 15 years of advisory work, different firms, different environments, different topics. I loved every minute of it. One of my last engagement was a huge transformation project we sold to a refinery in Oman, and multiple millions of dollars of services, 2 to 3 years of work. And at the back end of it, I still remember a dear friend of mine approaching me because we published a case study. And obviously, this is our advisory work. You need to publicize the work you do, hoping that it's going to open new doors. No? It's a good little recipe. And so one of my close friends uh, approaches me and he basically tells me, listen, I looked at what you guys I've been doing, and I think that yeah, it was the beginning of AI ML, talking 5 years ago. And I think that with a piece of tech, we could have done roughly 80% of what you guys have done for roughly 20% of the cost. I didn't take him seriously, but was curious enough to entertain the dialogue and look a bit more into it. And a few weeks later, I realized that he was right. So two things I could do: either start working with technology like this, or decide not to do anything and wait and just potentially disappear because my offering was going to be non-competitive fairly rapidly. And this is when I decided to jump ship, move from advisory to pure technology, and designing, packaging, and selling solutions that were AI enabled. I'm talking 5 years ago. That's way before Gen AI. And it worked pretty well. That was difficult at the beginning because I'm not a technologist, never been. And that shift wasn't easy, especially that I wasn't in my I was in my early 40s then, so that's quite a change. The normal trajectory would have been to continue in advisory, to make it to partner, and then potentially become a managing director or whatever. It's like the normal track, and this is what 90% of folks around me have done. But yeah, again, I questioned the positioning. I threw an opportunity, seized it, and yeah, here we are 4 years later. I've been in AI since since a few years now. Different type of AI, different offering, but I've loved every minute I've been in it because you know AI is has become centric and is about to become even more.
And so, with this shift, and somebody looking to think, right, how can they improve efficiencies, effectiveness, do more with less, or be better? Just take us through how you would sit with somebody to actually see how your solutions could be brought about in, as you say, a highly cost-effective way, and also from a timely way as well.
So I'll talk about agentic AI. Again, like I said, the technology keeps on evolving. This is more or less the talk of the town now. Um, Agentic AI, I don't think is well understood by the vast majority of folks around us, in the sense that people believe it's a magnified chat GPT, because this is more or less how it's been positioned. And generative AI is fun. It's definitely generated a lot of value, but it's not really intelligent when you come to think about it. But again, not being intelligent doesn't make it not deliver lots of value. It did, huh? But if you it's fairly recent, but a few months, call it 1 or 2 years ago, came to the market technologies based on, again, agentic AI, so AI agents. And for the first time in the history of mankind, to be honest, we were able to develop technologies that were able to reason independently. And that's mind blowing because now we're in the process of creating an artificial workforce that can tackle a lot of tasks humans were taking care of in enterprise quicker, probably better, with limited human supervision, to, in certain cases, even no human supervision. And we're seeing it. It's not even theoretical, Deborah. It's happening as we speak, and it's going to accelerate. Now, this raises a lot of questions across the board, from the impact on the impact on workforce, on job markets, to regulations, to IP, to security, to geostrategy, and the list to energy consumption, there's probably 20 core topics that are going to be that it opens up to. But one thing that I'm certain of is two things I'm certain of. The first thing is, yes, the technology works, and it does work today. So it's not a conceptual forward-looking statement. It is happening in December 2024. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if the technology were to stop evolving today, which we all know it's not, but if it were, we're dealing at minimum with 10 years of change management for the economy to adapt. Now, take into account the fact that the tech is going to continue evolving and, by the way, is evolving at paces we've rarely seen before. Actually, we've never seen before. So if you take this into account, yeah, we're on the verge of a revolution.
And how would you say to a company that's going to invest now to help them with a system that's not going to be obsolete by the time it's implemented?
Fair question. It might, but it's not an issue because the capex requirements are pretty low. Actually, they're virtually non-existent. Mostly is OpEx, so you pay per seat. There's no sunk cost or there's limited sunk cost. So try it, and if it's not going to work, fail fast. Move to the next trial. If it's going to work, try to scale it and open up all the difficult questions it's going to have on how do I keep my people, what's the impact on my value chain, how do I compete, how do I price, how do I protect my IP. All of those questions are valid. And again, I'm not pretending I've got the answers. I don't. The only thing I know for a fact is not answering those questions or ignoring them is suicidal.
And where do people come into play in all of this? Where do you see that, you think, right, people need to be in this role, and that at this particular moment in time really is best if a person were in that particular role rather than an AI generative, an AI agent tech system? Where do people's role in this new era come into play?
Probably the toughest question, to be honest, and yeah, probably also the most pressing question. Uh, what's my view on this? Uh, so there's multiple things to take into account. The first one is pushing back, like I said, at least three times over the last few minutes, is definitely not the right answer. Because if you don't, your neighbor won't, and he'll get the edge, and you'll be out of market very quickly. Waiting for governments to regulate this, yeah, I wouldn't bet too much on that. It will ultimately, it is starting, but as we all know, regulations, are always playing catch up. So there's this lead time between the regulation and given the pace at which technology is evolving, that lead time is enough will transform things quicker than education. Uh, Obviously, it is already having an impact on the job market. You've mentioned in introduction the fact that I was involved in setting up a coding school. Uh, yeah, because I believe we need more coders. And even before doing what I was doing, I wanted to give back to my home country, in this case Lebanon, and set up a coding school there. And we're training 200 coders a year, and guess what? They're finding a job, and a fairly decently well-paid job after only 2 years, probably more than if they were to do 5 years of engineering study, and it would have cost them an arm and a leg. Paradoxically enough, huh? So I guess the point I'm making here is yes, we need to train, in certain cases, even retrain our workforce to adapt to that new reality. It is going to be painful. Not doing it is going to be even more painful, but that's needed. Now, how will enterprise evolve? Yeah, my view is that we're creating agents to work with people. In certain cases, get people to focus on what they're good in. And repetitive tasks that don't require a lot of imagination, that at the end of the day have a complexity that can be modelized and addressed, uh, our task, we won't really need humans. And again, it's not only on the shop floor, and it's like a radiologist, that is a trained medical doctor that probably would have trained 9 years, and his added value is in the value chain of healing a patient. He's the one looking at a radio and assessing the damage. Now, it's image analysis. It's as simple as this. If you look at numbers, he's already an AI agent does what he does significantly better. Now, lawyers, you're asking a lawyer to review a contract to come with an opinion. Well, an AI law agent does it already better. Now, so the impact on the job market is already happening. What does this leaves us with? We need to train, retrain our people We need to make sure that they learn very quickly how to work with AI and adapt accordingly. Now, again, by saying this, folks might say that, yeah, that's easier said than done, and it's going to be highly disruptive. Yeah, it is, probably. I agree. But I wanna share with you at least my super high level view. Human brains and human intelligence is one form of intelligence, the most advanced form of intelligence that it took roughly 4.5 billion years to mature. Uh, we're building a new type of intelligence, and we're only at the beginning. But fundamentally, our story, when I say our story, the story of human mankind has have been a story of adapting to an environment and making the most out of it. Do you think we've done well? If you look at our story the last few centuries, it doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. If we only focus on gl- global warming, we all know that what we're doing is not sustainable, and to a certain extent, we're going to be hitting the wall very soon. We know it, and we're still not doing as much as we should about it. Huh? So we all know that continuing dancing like we're dancing is not sustainable. We know it. We're choosing to ignore it, but deep in our heart, we know it. I'll give you other examples. We all know that to continue living how we live, we need to consume more energy, as simple as this. Now, most of our energy comes from non-renewable, harmful areas. Huh? So burning petrol, has its own limits. And we're seeing this. Huh? You're emitting way too carbon, blah, 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 blah. But we know what the solution is. The solution is fusion. We've been knowing it for at least half a century. We're trying to crack the problem. We're failing because it's a tough problem to crack, but we've got a certainty there. It works. You look at the sun, it's fusion. So we know it works. We're just not able to crack it. Again, this is so if we want to continue living how we're living, and without degrading our lifestyle, we absolutely need to leverage every piece of intelligence around. So yes, it is going to be disruptive for the markets, for the job markets. Maybe capitalism will evolve in a totally different way. I don't know. Few decades ago, folks were talking about a universal revenue. Is that going to become the norm? I don't know. But what I know is we now have the opportunity. We're building machines that are about to, they're not yet there, but certainly, chances are that they'll become super intelligent rather quicker rather soon than later. And I see this as an opportunity. Obviously, I'm not naive. There's all kind of challenges, risks all over the place. But given the challenges we're confronted to as a macro group, as humanity, this is a good news. We need to leverage it. We absolutely need to build on it because the problems we're confronted to are complex and they're not about to get any time. They're not about to get any easier. And the more brain power, being artificial or non or biological, we can put on that, the higher the chances are of us being able to crack it. I'll stop here.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting thing. I hold no judgment because ultimately it's something is going to happen. It's going to evolve, and I don't get involved in the judgment. Rather, like yourself with your nonprofit, get out and vote. It's not the political issue that concerned about. It's actually getting that groundswell of people together to think of this holistically without judgment. And we can work very hard, but as long as we don't get fixated on the outcome, that's where the true beauty of striving and developing all comes from, because we don't know what's going to happen. That's the thing that we can kind of look at previous trends, but there has to be a trend. And in this instance, there isn't. It's new territory. So I completely get what you're saying. And people will, it will polarize people, which these things always do. But like it or not, there's the same as if you were, let's say, a cartwheel maker back in the day. Change is going to happen. Are you still going to be making your cartwheels? Well, I have to say there's still carts around, but there are a lot less of them. You become a very specialist niche in what you do, and I'm sure those people who are making those cartwheels are doing it because of the love of it, but that doesn't suit everybody. So it's just like looking at this change and thinking, right, so in a way, we know it's going to happen. And I think it's beautiful. Personally, I think that this is the next revolution. And I think if we can think about the 0 point energy field as a source to get boundless energy, soon we'll be able to control gravity. That means that travel will just be exploding and the whole new technologies. So we're in a poised for an incredible new era from a paradigm shift. And often people are talking about, without going woohoo, but the new era, the new earth. And there's no reason why it can't be absolutely amazing. It's
Agree.
just,
Yeah.
it can, we always look at the polarities, forces for good and forces for bad. We'll always have those. But it's how can we navigate as individuals and in business and firmly believe that if the more we are aware, ignorance it breeds fear, it breeds anxiety. It's all the negative side of things. But if we can be open and open up like you are, Jean-Paul, with the idea of this, the concept, the childlike curiosity, then ultimately, if we're doing it with a heart-centered approach in the right way from moving people forward to benefit everybody, then bring it on because it's going to come anyway. So we might as well bring it on. It's you can't stand there like King Canute and say, "Waves, I want you to leave," because it just ain't happening. So, and this is why I
Totally.
think, challenge in business, challenge in university, everything comes from a thought. And that thought then is a perception, and then we live that as thought as truth. And sometimes, and in most cases, that thought isn't the truth. It's just our version of a concept of reality that we've chosen to build upon that thought. And I always let people know I hate roller coasters because they make me feel ill. I get very motion sick. But some people love roller coasters. It's just like a roller coaster, feel sick. No, don't want to do it. Roller coaster, feel exhilarated. Yay. So it's each of our perceptions, and may that continue because the difference between us should be celebrated because that doesn't make me wrong and the other person right. It just means that we can look at things from different perspectives, and we need that difference of approach. So bring it on, bring the polarization, bring the non-judgment, because at the end of the day, it's all okay.
And but I agree, Deborah, 100%. You're right.
I'm on my soapbox now. I'll get off. I'll get off my soapbox. But thank you. I mean, is there anything else that you'd like us to explore about this new era? Well, this evolving era, because new sounds like we're in one state and we'll go into another. It's evolving. What are your thoughts, just to close off on that?
Experiment. Let's close it. Let's close with a positive statement. Is technology is evolving so fast that in order to remain relevant, people need to experiment new ways of working with innovative technologies, learn fast, remain curious, keep on accepting to challenge the statu quo and the ways they were working, again, without any preconceived ideas. This is the biggest mistake, and I'm seeing this around at all levels in the economy, and all levels in enterprises, from the lower level to the highest level, higher level. It's this often preconceived ideas, resistance for the wrong reasons. So don't resist, uh, learn, try, experiment, fail. In lots of cases, it's going to be disappointing. It's not going to work, but you can't afford ignoring. Again, like I've mentioned, Deborah, it's just stick to that simple idea. We've created a pieces of software that are truly intelligent, as simple as this. They can adapt to the environment, they can make decisions, they can learn fast, they can be personalized, they have memory. So again, is it AGI? We're not there. Will we get there? I have no clue. Maybe, maybe not. But with what we currently have nowadays, it's like I've mentioned before, it is enough change management for 10 years. So let's deal with it ASAP. Let's learn, fail, and take the good sides of it. When I've started leveraging AI in my day-to-day life probably 18 months ago, and again, didn't work right from the first time, but 18 months later, it's giving me a 20 to 30 to 40% increase in my productivity. What does it mean? It's not that I'm making 20 to 30 to 40% more money I would love so, but it's not the case. But I have more time, so I can do more stuff. I can do, we talked about it previously, but I can do stuff that are not related to my day work. I can spend more time with my family. There's all kind of advantages. Why? Because you can get things done right first time quicker because of tech. That's it. I'll close on that positive note.
Brilliant. And just as a thought, which has just come to my mind, I remember my dearly departed father, and he said to me, well, bring on computers, because if they are meant to give us this 3-day week that everybody's talking about, I get more time to do what I want. And look at us now, 3-day week? You must be joking.
No,
That didn't quite happen.
we're getting close to a 4-day week in some advanced economies, huh? Even over here in the UAE, that's kind of like becoming the norm without it impacting the GDP. So we're getting closer to a certain extent because again, folks simply need to work less to do the same and potentially even do more. That's it. Is it good, bad? I don't know. It's still a fact. I think it's good, but
Well,
it's just a
it's
fact.
what you do with that time that's the important thing, isn't it, really? So yeah, Jean-Paul, fascinating, insightful. You're a man of many hidden depths, and we've only just scratched the surface. How can people get hold of you?
First of all, thanks a lot, Deborah, for having me on the show. That was a true pleasure. LinkedIn is the best way for folks to get hold. I am responsive, so just give me a few days and I'll revert back to messages and get the dialogue going.
Oh, wonderful. And everybody will put them, as we always do, on the show notes, etc. So you've got opportunities to get hold of Jean-Paul and carry on this conversation. And it's wonderful. You know, new is what it is. It's not something that we do. But I tell you what, in 100 years' time, we'll look back and we'll go, that old technology that they were worried about. Oh my gosh, we've moved on so much since then. So it's only because we're in it and we haven't had that beauty of hindsight looking back. So yeah, absolutely. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Now, I have to say, you are an amazing audience. I love having your support. It's just wonderful to have you. Please, if you think this resonates, like, comment, subscribe. And also, if you think that this could resonate with somebody else, please share this episode as well, because I'm here as Jean-Paul is to have a platform to share voices, to help people, to add value, to contribute to the wonderful movement that we're having in the world. And if that can touch somebody and you think that's relevant, then please do go ahead and share. It'll be very much appreciated. So everybody, until next time, be successful. It's great. Put a smile on our faces and enjoy. So see you all again very soon. And thanks a lot, Jean-Paul.
Thanks a lot, Deborah.
Okay, bye bye now, everyone.